Hello everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Gabbin with Gavin. I'm your host, Gavin Broniker. For this final episode, I wanted to choose a very special guest. She's been with the university since 2017. She's been a major factor in a number of the changes the university has underwent within these last few years, most notoriously that to the move of Division I. I wanted to meet with her, get a little bit more of her background, learn about her story, how she came to Bellarmine, some of the things she's most proud of in the university as her time here, and looking into the future and what she's most excited for. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Dr. Susan Donovan, the Bellarmine University President. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, finding time in your schedule to come and talk with me. It's a great honor.
Yeah. Happy to do so.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background information before we sort of get into some of the more questions. So you started off at Loyola University in Maryland. Can you talk about the various roles that you had there at that university?
Sure. Yeah, I had just finished my PhD at St. Louis U and moved out and was initially the Dean of Residence Life, so in charge of housing, residential population. And we were growing 200 residents a year, so it was a good job to have, and I was fresh out of a PhD. And I really liked being at a Jesuit university, and I had St. Louis U was a Jesuit university,
okay.
So a Catholic university, and those were actually the first time I was at a Catholic university, and I just thought it was great, the values and everything.
For sure. Was education always something that you had on your horizon since you were a little girl?
You know, I am a first generation college student, so I wasn't really planning to go to college. I was going to be a secretary, and they used to call it that, executive assistant or something. And my shorthand and typing skills were not that great, so my junior year of high school, I decided I got to go to college. And I didn't even look at that many colleges. I actually followed my older sister to the college she had chosen.
Very
about
nice.
90 miles from home, a small liberal arts school.
There you go.
Yep.
Was the position of president something that you were kind of actively seeking out at your time at Loyola University, Maryland, or was that something that just kind of got presented to you and you were willing to take on that role?
Yeah, so I wasn't, you know, I was, I guess when I ended up going undergrad, master's, PhD all in a row at 3 different places.
Okay.
Because I did my master's at Florida State, did my undergrad at a small liberal arts school in Iowa, which is where I grew up. And then I just decided that I guess after my undergrad experience, I had a mentor who was a dean of students, and I was like, that's what I wanted. Well, she actually, I went to Jan term, and she encouraged me to go to Florida State for my Jan term, and I lived in a sorority house and ended up writing a journal, and I interviewed everybody in student affairs at Florida State and attended some grad classes during the Jan term, and then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, and then applied and went back the next fall and did my master's in higher ed. Yeah. But I really felt to be a dean of students, you needed to have a PhD, so that's why I continued going
Pursued
on to
that,
school.
for sure.
Yep.
So then your first year at Bellarmine University, you kind of hit the ground running. It looks like I actually have some statistics that I got. So it said on your first year, you established a couple new places. So I think that we had that medical center was something that you guys implemented for sure.
Watterson, medical center. Yeah.
Also says here that you saw record-breaking in fundraising in that first year for the university.
We got a $5 million gift that year. We actually announced it before my inauguration. We announced it around the time of my inauguration, which was in October.
Yeah. And then it also says that you had reduced debt. So those achievements being just in your first year, how proud of you are you in the fact that you entered into this campus and just immediately got to work and started to see positive growth?
You know, it was great. I knew that it was a big job, and it was great to have that success. What I really enjoyed most is the students, which has always been true, I guess, most of my career, but just how eager to learn and how authentic they were and how hardworking they were. And I always say to people, I never know whether you should say you're in the Midwest or the South in Louisville, and I have lived in both places. I've lived in Tallahassee and I've lived in the Midwest. I grew up in the Midwest. But that's what really energized me the most.
Mm-hmm.
It was just how engaged our students were. And I think I sort of saw myself in their experience because we have a lot of first generation college students too.
Mm-hmm. Kind of leads a little bit into my next question. So you are a very active president here on the university. So I've seen things, you've been serving dinner at that late night breakfast that they have. Recently you were on the quad for the solar eclipse, watching it with the other students. And then also you're pretty active at the sporting events across all the sports that we have here on campus. How much do you try to make that a point of emphasis in your job?
It's really important to me. I always tell people I grew up in a small town. I went to a small college. I like things close, so I've never lived further than a mile from campus. That we lived a mile for 30 years in Baltimore, and we live a mile here.
Yeah.
And we actually moved, but we didn't move. We live in the Highlands because for that very reason, to get back and forth and to be at things. I was at Shakespeare over the weekend.
Yeah.
It's just a incredible production. Yeah, and my husband was a faculty member, so our whole world has revolved around that.
Yeah.
When we have 2 children, and when they were growing up, they could walk to their parents' work or they could walk to school.
Yeah, that proximity's always been something important for you. Yeah. Another major change that you've underwent is that move to the Division I level. Is that something that you kind of had on your horizon whenever you entered into Bellarmine in 2017, or is that something that, once again, was just sort of presented to you guys and you thought it would be the best move? I know that you've mentioned in the past you're very proud of that move.
Yeah, well, Bellarmine was actually in Loyola's conference for a while.
Okay.
So that's how I even knew about Bellarmine for lacrosse, because Bellarmine was Division I in lacrosse since 2005. But when I interviewed, they said, well, we may not be Division I in lacrosse anymore. And I knew Bellarmine had been grandfathered in, so I didn't understand that. So I had a lot of questions about that. And the trustees didn't actually know the answers to it. But it was really because GLVC, the Division II conference that we had, never had men's lacrosse, and then they were starting men's lacrosse. Okay. And their policy was that you're all in for all sports. And I was like, well, I don't understand why I would do that, or why you would make us do that, because it's grandfathered in, like we're good. And we were doing strategic planning at the same time, and I said, well, you're sort of going to force our hand. So we did explore at that point, well, what would it take to do it? And our trustees were involved, our faculty were involved. We had a whole sort of committee as part of the strategic planning process. And, with Division II, you're spending the scholarship dollars anyway, but people don't know about you. And that was one of my we call it very well, one of my concerns about Bellarmine at the time is nobody knows us.
For sure.
And being a best kept secret is not always the best when
Yeah,
you're trying to recruit
exactly.
students. Based on that study, and we went out and we talked to schools that did it successfully and even a school that didn't do it successfully. Lipscomb happened to be one of the schools that this committee went to talk to, and that now they ended up, we ended up in the same conference with them. But I credit the trustees a lot because it was a bold move for a school our size.
Absolutely.
And there was some skepticism from some of the conference members at the time. Some of them are no longer there, but about could we really do it? Could we pull it off? And so I do think you aspire to as high as you can go, and the students were in favor of it all along, and the coaches were in favor of it, but we knew it would be a steep climb.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then the
But
first
I
year.
think it's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. The first year, though, you guys are obviously met with a little bit of challenges, with that being the COVID year. So trying to implement going to a new division,
Yeah.
and then also trying to implement the new ways of teaching, getting information out while dealing with the pandemic. How proud are you of the university and the way that they handled that?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, it was, on the athletics front, it was very challenging because in the middle of the spring, then they stopped everything.
For sure.
And those students lost the opportunity to finish out their sports. But yeah, the faculty and the staff responded incredibly well to all the challenges that were faced. One of the great things, and our student affairs staff did a great job doing a lot of programming outside. On the quad, we did stuff on the quad a lot at nights, and also in the Siennas, in that area, they had a sort of fire pit constantly going. There was a tent up there, and food. We were delivering food to the rooms. There was a lot of. We were fortunate too that we had expertise on our faculty in medical lab sciences and in nursing and health, because they were very good on the committees that were. But tons of people worked very hard to ensure that we were keeping people safe.
Yeah, for sure. And now that you are Division I, you're starting to see some numbers climb. I have a couple more statistics that I just recently found. So the 2027 class, the enrollment is the highest since 2018, which is up from 16% growth. It says that 44% are first-gen students, which I know, just talking to you already, you're pretty proud of that, I imagine. 46 are the Rail Grant eligible.
Pell Grant.
Yes, Pell Grant, yes. And then the 33% are students of color, which I know all of these are very important statistics. How proud are you in the direction that Bellarmine is heading?
I'm very proud of that. Those were goals in the strategic plan. If you look at the strategic plan, was to be more affordable, more accessible, to really be more diverse and equitable, and to live that. And I am actually even a little surprised that it happened
that quickly, for sure. Yeah.
And which is not to say we didn't have a ton of hurdles.
Yes.
But we have some very creative administrators, vice presidents, and others working with faculty and staff to make that happen. And it's tough in times that we're very lean to make that much progress.
And I assume that, with this growth, there's a couple other challenges you get to face, and, trying to make sure there's enough resources for all the students. And as you continue to see growth, can you talk a little bit about some of the plans that you guys have for the university?
Yeah, sure. So it was very challenging because we had to furlough people at one point. We certainly have reduced the size of some of our faculty and staff as our numbers were down, and our numbers weren't down that far, but there were just a lot of costs. We were a big enough university that we didn't qualify for many of the federal dollars, but we were small enough and still complex to do that. I think that's part of the strength of Bellarmine, that we have, you still have a small college environment and strong liberal arts, but you also have healthcare and business and education that are in graduate programs, physical therapy, and so that's great. But I think going forward, we have some vision for increasing some new programs, academic programs, which will be great for students.
Absolutely.
And we just started a nursing anesthesia doctoral program. We're in our first year. That's a great need in the hospitals and in the region. It's also great paying jobs, and we've just redone a whole the Flynn building, basically. But it also gave us some opportunities to move some things. So I'm really proud of the honors program moving into the library space. They were in they weren't in an area that had, they had a little seminar room. That's all they had. Now they have a classroom down there. They have a space for students to really enjoy it. I think we have one of the top honors programs in the country. I also am happy to see exercise science moving over to Allen Hall. We have the Hobbs Center there, which is where they can do some work. They have a lab, their own lab space, and also physical therapy is right there. So that is a common major there. You know, we're looking at a master's in clinical psych. We're looking at a master's in data analytics and software. That's been a growth area for us. So yeah, I think our faculty have done an incredible job on programs, and also just ensuring that we stay abreast of what the workforce needs and what students want.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the incoming class, but obviously as a class comes in, one leaves, and as graduation approaches, do you have any sort of piece of advice to give to the graduates as they head out into the world?
Well, I think they've gotten, as long as they applied themselves, I think they've gotten a very great education.
For sure.
And I say they go out boldly. They're going to be surprised how well prepared they are, and that's a credit to our faculty and our staff who have given them the opportunities, and for students taking risks while they're here. I think staying true to their values and ethics is incredibly important, and I think that's one of our strengths, that students have a sound basis in philosophy and theology and great dialogue amongst each other, that they're well-rounded when they go into the workforce. So I think they just need to not be timid, and they're gonna be leaders, I have no doubt. So I get very emotional this time of year, but I'm very excited to see the impact that our students are gonna have on the world, both our undergraduate and our graduate students.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's all I've got for you. I really appreciate you coming on here and answering all those questions.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
What's next with you?
So I'll be graduating and then heading into a graduate program here, so
Great.
I'm excited for it.
That's wonderful.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for tuning in to the final episode of Gabbin with Gavin. I've had a blast making these shows over the past few semesters, and I hope you all enjoyed watching me get to sit down, interact with various guests from different backgrounds. To the graduates, I want to wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors. And to the students remaining here at Bellarmine, I wish you the best of luck with your time here. I hope that you enjoy every second. Once again, thank you all for tuning in, and go Knights.